Hi there, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Oh, these poor berries. Too top heavy. Get situated. Ah, it's a beautiful day here. It's about 80 degrees right now. Um, the sun is shining bright. Had a really good week, a lot of rain. Um, got some new friends to show you. The plants have been doing really well. Um, I haven't had to water too much all week. So my ritual of talking to them while I water them. Oh, hey everybody. My ritual of talking to my plants while I water them. I haven't been doing it as much, so I've been coming out here a lot more just during the day and just walking around looking at them. Um, I was showing them off to a couple friends yesterday, the people who own the gas station where I go and get my lunch every day for work. Um, they're real nice people. His He was born in India, and his wife, he moved here when he was about 9, and his wife moved here a lot more recently. Um, but I've known their whole family for a while now. It's been the same family that's owned the convenience store there for about 6 years, and every couple years, a new cousin will come or something and take over, and the people who were there retire. But yeah, so my plants they've been happy. They've had a lot of visitors. A lot of the berries are starting to turn, as I don't know if you can see, but a lot of these are already. These are blackberries, but they're red. I know it's kind of, and my raspberries are black. But yeah, it's berry season right now. So I'll be doing I don't know if I'm gonna do a live hangout. I was thinking about it. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna do a live hangout, but I'm gonna make some preserves, and I was gonna definitely document it, show you the picking, and then the just going through all of it, the making. And I'm gonna do it on a open fire outside. I don't want to do it inside. Inside's super easy, but I just want to show people that it can be done outside over an open flame, and it's not hard at all to do. Um, but yeah, that'll be happening here real soon because the berries are. I had a little mishap yesterday. Actually, the big white clothes hanger looking thing in the middle of the yard fell over. It was about 30 years old. It happens. I'm gonna have to take that apart today. Got to mow today. It's gonna be a good day. A good outside, get a lot of work done day. I work in the factory all week, so being out here and I just I relish the summers here in Indiana because the winters you kind of want to stay inside. So without any further ado, let's get to it. Thank you, everybody. Let's see, who did I see in here? I know I saw Sandra and Chris. There's Ron in there, Dan. Yeah, thank you, everybody. I appreciate y'all being here. Um, Again, we'll be reading from Real Alchemy, a primer of practical alchemy by Robert Allen Bartlett. Um, we ended off learning about how to create spagyric elixirs. Um, it has to do with separating, remember, the soul, the spirit, and the body is what everything possesses. And we try to break these down in spagyric elixirs. We purify them, and then we coho cohobate or revivify, they call it. We put it all back together when it's more pure and create a new, more pure being um, to then consume and help us become more. It's a really beautiful process, but that's spagyrics. That's what we covered last week. This week we're going to be into chapter 5, the alchemical processes. And these will be um, the actual steps like a chemist would perform. This isn't any of the spiritual aspects of any of it. This is strictly chemistry based. Um, and then chapter 6 we will be getting into, this is one of my favorite chapters, um, herbal alchemy is the name of the chapter. And it's got some really neat stories in it, and some stuff that I'm going to be planning on doing here pretty soon. So, okay, here we go. Chapter 5, Alchemical Processes. I want to mention something about spagyrics versus alchemy versus chemistry. In chemistry, we take certain ingredients and combine them through a process to obtain a certain result. And it is always the same result, whether I mix it or you mix it. In alchemy, this is not always the case. There is a subtle something which can influence the end result. The chemist works with materials which are compounded and purified by processes, which the alchemist would call unphilosophical, and the materials so produced are dead bodies only. So what is philosophical? To have your materials be philosophically produced means you must follow the philosophy of alchemy and realize that you are working with the life force and consciousness of your material as well as the body. Again, the quality of our attention affects the quality of life in our subject, just as with a houseplant or pet. And I can vouch for that. That's 100% true. The more attention you give them, the better they do. The processes used in laboratory alchemy strive to capture and preserve the operation of subtle essences in a suitable vehicle, all the way to the material analogs. Between 16 and 1700, there occurred a transition period between alchemy and the new science of chemistry. It is during this time period that we can find some of the most clearly written descriptions of processes used in alchemy. Apothecaries of the time were acquainted with the processes and used them to compound certain medicines. This branch of the pharmacy at the time came to be known as spagyrics and related mostly to the preparation of plants. Spagyric preparations became widely popular, but due largely to the long preparations became widely popular, but due to the long processing times and labor, they slowly faded into obscurity in the hands of faster, cheaper substitutes born of a developing chemical industry. Some writers say spagyrics is the work on plants and alchemy is the work on metals. In truth, alchemy is a universal process working at all levels. Whereas the spagyric process is fundamental to both, alchemy in addition seeks to promote the matter's evolution. In a practical sense, spagyrics leads to powerful medicines for the body. Anyone who follows the methods can produce spagyric medicines. There is no strong dependence on the operator's state of mind. Alchemy aims to produce medicines for the soul and spirit levels of being, as well as the body, and the operator is strongly linked to the material operated upon. The proper state of mind is essential for success. I'll say that one more time just because that's so important. The proper state of mind is essential for success. So if you're planning on doing one of your alchemical processes, you want to make sure that that is what you're focused on. If something's going on in your life and it's really, really weighing on your mind, it probably wouldn't be a good time to try that process. It's the more focused you are upon it, the more of these subtle energies you're going to obtain. So the proper state of mind is essential for success. For example, once you have purified your essentials to a certain degree, they become very susceptible to mental impressions by those around them, good or bad. This is another reason for the secrecy surrounding alchemical works. Very often, only the artist is allowed to see or handle materials at certain points. These processes and materials can lead to deep insight or contact with alternate realms of consciousness, thus bringing direct knowledge to the alchemist. Now that's still one of those that I have trouble wrapping my mind around. I'm going to read that one more time. Very often, only the artist is allowed to see or handle materials at certain points. These processes and materials can lead to deep insight or contact with alternate realms of consciousness, thus bringing direct knowledge to the alchemist. This is a type of knowing that cannot be written because words are too limiting. It is the marriage of intellect and intuition, or the sun and the moon, as the alchemist would say. So, so by you being the only one there, maybe because you have this connection with a plant, when this process is being done, it will actually reveal something to you. It's kind of what it's saying. You know, just like an animal acts differently around you when you two are alone than it does when there's another person there. They act kind of skittish and they keep their eye on that person. And they don't focus all their attention on you. They're always aware of these other things. So when you're working with your plants and you're doing, you know, make it an intimate thing. Or if there are other people that are going to be there, have them there from the very beginning. Make sure that the plant feels safe when you're doing these processes. You know, just like your dog doesn't like, going to the vet and being handled by somebody new for the first time. They're very skittish. Many dogs are. And that's a very normal response. Just like you going to a doctor, you're not somebody you're seeing for the very first time. It's an experience. It's not a normal everyday thing. I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough. Alchemy is more than just something you do in a laboratory. It is a spiritual path leading one to enlightenment, to evolving. It can be thought of as psychophysiological transformation directed by human self-consciousness. The great work, or magnum opus of alchemy, leads to the spiritual and physical regeneration of the alchemist himself. I should say themselves. The spiritual and physical regeneration of the alchemists themselves. So it's, again, you are part of this process. And only as willing as you're allowed, willing to go to purify yourself, everything will pick up on that. When you're working in alchemy, the plants know if you're out there, poisoning your body, they're probably going to pick up on that. They're probably going to feel those bad vibrations coming off of you, of your aura, your electromagnetic, your aura that you put off. Negative waves, as you would put it. And the more pure that your vibration is, maybe the more pure they're willing to go, the harder they're willing to try, if you're willing to try. So it's, like I said, it isn't the little bottle that's the end process you're looking for. It's within you. You taking it is the final process to where the transmutation, it happens within you. You are the thing that you're trying to transform. The philosophers agree that the process consists of stages, which are repeated over and over again on the matter until perfection is obtained. These stages or operations represent the active principles at work in nature, whether we are speaking of the work on plants, metals, or on our own body and psyche. The alchemical work is not just a spring cleaning or detox session from which we fall back into the same old routine. Instead, it is a true and lasting purification. That portion of the great work which has to do with the transmutation of the alchemists themselves is a process whereby the vibratory activity of our interior stars is so modified that the lower rates of vibration are transmuted and sublimated or lifted up. Ooh. This transmutation of the subtle force working through the interior stars has a triple consequence. It leads to spiritual illumination. It presents the alchemist with radiant health due to the perfect combination and coordination of chemical and electrical energies, which maintain the form and functioning of the human body. And finally, this process opens the activity of powers which are normally dormant in most human beings. Paracelsus said, "You will transmute nothing if you have not first transmuted yourself." Man himself is the primary subject of the Hermetic art. It is useless to try to make the philosopher's stone outside oneself before one has approached the first part of the operation, which slowly transforms the operator themselves into the living stone. Only then will the alchemist possess the necessary skills and understanding of subtle forces to complete the work of making an actual substance with the power to transmute other bodies. That's why nobody can find the philosopher's stone, because the philosopher's stone lies within the philosopher themselves. The study of astrology and practical Kabbalah provide us with tools for establishing relationships between seemingly unrelated concepts and materials, as well as a technology for the raising of spiritual energy, the secret fire in man. These are essential parts of the alchemist discipline. Trying to separate out the physical actions of the alchemist in the laboratory form these interior connections, bridging the spiritual and physical realms, reduces it to common chemistry. And I don't say common chemistry lightly. Chemistry is a very difficult art. And there's many processes in it, and it is a science in itself. But this man is a chemist himself, and he belittles it. Oh. Thank you, Anthony. Beautiful. You too, brother. I appreciate everything you're showing me. You taught me so much already in such a short amount of time. Ora et labora. The alchemical dictum, ora et labora. It means pray at work. Was the ancient guideline for practice. Our word laboratory comes from it. The lab is a temple, and oratory wherein we labor. See, that's one thing that chemistry leaves out, is that it's very spiritual. You pray while you're doing these things almost. The laboratory work provides us with some powerful tools for accomplishing this great work. The creation of our tinctures and elixirs is a first step in correcting the imbalances in our own sulfur, mercury, and salt. Again, that's our soul, our spirit, and our body. But there are many improvements that can be made to augment their power and effectiveness. Some are simple. Others require much more time and effort. Each process teaches and provides insight into nature's operations. Before we can approach this subject, however, we need to understand something of the methodology of laboratory alchemy. Many people have the impression that to even begin alchemical work, one must have all manner of expensive chemical apparatus at one's disposal. This is simply not true. You can begin your own alchemical laboratory with common household items, just as we did in preparing the seven basics. As one continues the work, one finds that the materials one needs have a way of showing up when they are needed. And that is so true. Um, you can go back and look at my very last video. It's of my newest alchemical, my first piece of alchemical glassware. It's a distillation setup with a um, coiled water-cooled condenser. And it just came with the glassware, and everything else I had there all came with stuff that I had purchased before and I've never used it. Not so much the surgical tubing, but well, I had the buckets that I had gotten from work. But all the stuff that I needed, the little parts so that the tubing all fit and worked together, and everything that I needed to put it all together, I already had here at home. And that's that's one of those things that you can't take for granted. A lot of times you'll buy something, at least I know I will, and I don't know what I'm going to be using it for. And then all of a sudden, years later, it comes around and boom, there you go. When you need it, it presents itself. Hey, FPV, how we doing? Okay, so one finds the materials one needs have a way of showing up when they are needed. In the laboratory, fire is our main tool for transformation. Alchemy has been called work of Vulcan, or the blacksmith of the gods, and the old masters called themselves fire philosophers. The sages agree that control of the fire is the key to success in alchemical works. Heat, the amount of heat that you're applying, is so important. Not very long ago, there were no thermostatic controls like we have today, and not much further back, there were no thermometers. Yet the alchemists were furnaces. Anyone who has ever stoked a wood stove or campfire, or even a barbecue, must appreciate the dedication and diligence required to keep a crucible at red heat for a month, or even longer using a coal furnace. There are many grades of fire mentioned in alchemical texts. Some are physical, some are subtle representatives of spiritual principles. Most often mentioned are celestial fire, central fire, secret fire, or elemental or common fire. We will be developing a deeper understanding of these various fires as we go. For now, let us examine the lowest grade of fire, that which we are most familiar with, common fire. At the practical level, the ancients used common fire in a system of graded heats, often called the 4 degrees of fire. The first degree of fire is the Balneum Marie, or Bath of Mary. Some believe this was developed by a female Jewish adept named Mary, the prophetess, around 500. Others say it is not derived from a woman's name, but from the word mare, and refers to the ocean, like marine. This is basically a double boiler. The container of matter to be heated is immersed in another container of water, which is heated by the furnace. This is why the subject matter can never get hotter than 100 degrees Celsius, and thus cannot scorch the delicate components. Alcohol is rectified in a water bath, as an example. The second degree of fire is Balneum Cineris, or ash bath. This is where the matter is placed in the ash pit and heated still hotter. The ashes have a certain insulating quality that allows for a heat which is above that of boiling water, but still evenly distributed around the vessel. Um, for example, ash, for those of you that have ever smoked pipe tobacco, and you use a very deep weld pipe, you'll notice the people that do this, they'll always have to tap it out a little bit and then they'll light it up again. It's because that ash on top has created an insulating layer which has not allowed oxygen to get through and keep the coals burning of the tobacco. Um, and that's kind of the same principle. When you put the ashes all the way around it, they work as kind of like an insulator, keeping the heat even all the way around it. The third degree of heat is called the balneum arena, or sand bath. It is set up like the water bath, but it is able to maintain a higher heat than the water or ashes. Many oils and substances with boiling points higher than water can be heated and distilled with the sand bath. It provides an even heating of the matter and avoids hot spots from developing. In fairly high heats, the sand bath also lends support for the vessel, which might otherwise become deformed from the heat. The fourth degree is balneum ignis, or bathed in flame. This is the hottest you can make it in your furnace with a naked flame. This heat is used for calcinations, fusions, etc. We have a great advantage today with our electric hot plates or gas heating that can be regulated easily for long periods. In general, start off with the lowest temperature possible to accomplish the operation and try to avoid hot spots from unevenly heating. One can always increase the heat as needed. Now what I did, I was going to order the hot plate, but instead I went with a alcohol burner, a wickless alcohol burner. Call it that, the shaman in me. He told me to do it, I guess. He said you don't need the hot plate that tells you exactly what temperature it is and this and that. He said learn to do it with the flame and with this. Because that hot plate that you plug into an outlet, that outlet may not always be putting out that electricity that you need to operate it. So at first I'm going to learn to do it the old-fashioned way. And then once I think I've become skilled enough in the operation and learning about heats and distances and all that kind of thing, then I might advance up to the hot plate. But for now I'm gonna go old school. That's just what the little voice inside me told me to do, and that's part of alchemy. It may tell you to go get a hot plate, but so just, yeah, I'm not telling anybody to do that. I'm listening to that voice. I'm just explaining why I did it. So yeah, listen to that voice inside you. It'll tell you where to go. The alchemical operations. We mentioned earlier that the operations of alchemy are representative of nature's operative principles, active at all levels of reality. The sages often point out that knowledge of the occult operations of the elements is another essential key to success. In order to understand where and why a particular operation is applied to our matter in the laboratory, we will be examining alchemical concepts of the elements as we go along. So I'm going to read that one part over again. The sages often point out that the knowledge of the occult operations of the elements is another essential key to success. They're talking about the Kabbalah and stuff like that. Those books are talking about physics. I never understood that until now, but I understand why they hide it. I think they understood more back then than we do now. And that's where you get the real knowledge. It's from these ancient books. And they changed the words around. They gave words two meanings, and what we call earth, fire, water, and air are totally different things to them. And it's very well done how they hit everything. It's amazing. Okay, our first alchemical operation is distillation. I want to talk about some of the common operations in laboratory alchemy and hopefully allay some of the fears in their performance. Foremost is the process of distillation. You have all done this. Maybe you did not recognize it as such, but we all have. You put a pot on the stove to simmer, then return to check it, lift the lid, and liquid streams off. This liquid has distilled from the contents of the pot. You breathe on a cold glass window and it condenses to liquid drops. This is distillation. The earliest accounts of distillation described hanging flocks of wool over boiling pots, then wringing the distilled liquid from the wool. This is from Jean-Baptiste del Porta, 1600. Now I am come to the arts, and I shall begin from distillation and invention of later times. A wonderful thing, to be praised beyond the power of man, not that the vulgar and unskilful man may use. For they do not corrupt and destroy what is good, but that which is done by skillful artists. This admirable art teaches how to make spirits and sublime gross bodies, how to condense and make spirits become gross bodies, and to draw forth of plants, minerals, stones, and jewels, the strength of them, that are involved and overwhelmed with great bulk, lying hid, as it were, in their chests, and to make them more pure, and thin, and more noble, and not being content with their common condition, and so lift them up as high as heaven. And that's the whole concept of alchemy, is to break things down and purify them, and then recombine them into a new, more purified being. You can go a long way in alchemy by gaining some mastery in the art of distillation. In days past, many households contained a distillery for making medicines, cordials, and cosmetics. There are many types of distillation: simple, fractional, steam, vacuum, solar, etc. In chemistry, we use the process to separate liquids from one another and to purify liquids. In alchemy, we additionally use this process to exalt or evolve our matter, as we mentioned earlier, mirroring life, death, rebirth cycle between states of matter. Now when you're doing this, as you keep on recycling something, as you make it, if you distill it once, it's a new being and treat it as such. You may have to explain some things to it, what you're doing. And then as you do it again, that again is a new being. If you're going to keep, that's why it's like praying. You know, you want to treat them the same over and over and over again, because there's brand new life each time you're doing these processes. That's why it's so important to have like a ritual almost, to make sure that you're never forgetting any of the things that you're trying to put into it. A trip to the thrift store and some ingenuity can provide you with a simple distillation setup if you do not have the funds or inclination to purchase chemistry glassware, or if you want to just try your hand at it before investing in it. At the very simplest, a jar containing liquid can be distilled, or to be distilled, can be placed into a larger jar, which is then sealed and placed in a sunny spot. The distillate will form on the walls of the large jar and run down the sides to the bottom, where it is then collected. It may not be terribly efficient or suitable for all distillation, but it is easily available for anyone to experiment. There are many illustrations in old texts depicting this type of solar distillation. That's something that everybody can try. There's a little experiment, an alchemical experiment you can try. Take some salt, swirl it around in some water, get it nice and soluble so it's not all gathering on the bottom, and do what he just said. Put it in another jar that's sealed and set it out in the sun. And all that water will end up on the outside and the salt will stay on the inside. Very neat process. In herbal alchemy, most common uses of distillation are the preparation of the sulfur and mercury. Earlier, we described the steam distillation of the essential oils from a plant. Live steam is injected into a plant water mush, and the essential oils are carried over with the steam to form a layer on top of the distilled water. We can also simply distill the plant water mush and collect the oil as it forms a layer at the top of the distillate. The collected oil can be mixed with water and distilled again to bring it to a higher state of purity. Frequent operation in herbal alchemy, and this distillation is repeated anywhere from 6 to 12 times in order to make it pure enough. The process is called rectification. However, we cannot produce 100% alcohol by simple distillation, no matter how often you repeat the process. The best we can do is about 95% unless we use some new tricks. Most often a drying agent is used, such as potassium carbonate or calcium oxide, quicklime. These materials are not soluble in alcohol but have a voracious affinity for water, which they absorb from the alcohol. In many instances, the distillations are repeated, not so much to increase the purity, but to elevate or spiritualize the matter. Our next process will be digestion. This is one of the most common operations of practical alchemy and is simply allowing the material to incubate at a constant temperature for some period of time. The time period will vary depending on what is needed to occur, and the temperature may need to be slowly increased over a lengthy course of a digestion. But the idea is to provide a heated environment for the matter to react within or to slowly mature, just like a hatching egg. The whole of the art is a controlled digestion. You can construct a simple chamber for digestion by placing a light bulb inside a large plastic ice chest of the type used for camping. Simply by changing the wattage of the lamp, you can control the temperature to the required degree. A simple indoor-outdoor thermometer is useful for monitoring temperature, for which herbal work ranges from about 90 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 40 degrees Celsius is the 104. Many operators prefer to wrap vessels with aluminum foil to protect them from the bright light. I'll have to remember that. Extraction will be our next process. Extraction refers to methods for separating the pure from the impure. As with all of these basic operations, there are many ways to accomplish the end. In general, extraction methods use an extraction medium to effect separation. When you brew tea, water is the extraction medium. When you made the 7 basics, vodka was the extraction medium, or Everclear in my case. Remember that the mercury of a kingdom has an affinity for the sulfur of that kingdom. In herbal extraction, we use alcohol, the vehicle for vegetable mercury, to pull out the sulfur of the plant. The resulting extract is called a tincture, from the Latin tinctura, that which colors. It contains the mercury and sulfur of the plant. The extracted plant residue contains the salt, which we obtain by calcination. There are 3 methods widely used to effect extraction of a tincture from plants. The first is called maceration. 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 We use this to make the 7 basics. Pour the extraction media, also called the solvent or menstruum, over the material to be extracted until it stands about 2 finger widths above the material. Seal tightly and shake well. Place into a warm spot to digest, and remember to shake it daily. After the extraction period, which can be a few hours to over a year in some operations, simply filter the tincture to separate it from the residue. And that's extraction. The second type of extraction allows us to use greater heat without loss of volatile components. This method is called reflux extraction. The matter to be extracted is placed into a flask and covered with the extraction medium. Then a condenser is attached to the top, and heat is applied such that condensation occurs no higher than the first 1/3 of the condenser. After several days of this constant heating without liquid loss, the material is allowed to cool, then filtered to obtain the extracted solid residue. This method works well for harder materials such as roots, barks, and woods. And it looks a lot like the same thing that I have. I don't know if you can see that. I think I'm seeing my reflection. And the third method of extraction is called Soxhlet extraction. Named after Franz von Soxhlet, a German chemist who invented a special glassware apparatus for extracting fatty substances from materials back in 1879. The apparatus has come to be called a Soxhlet extractor and can be somewhat expensive. In this method, the material to be extracted is placed into a filter paper cup called a thimble and inserted into the extractor body. The extraction medium is placed into a flask at the bottom and heat is applied to it. The solvent vapors rise up a side tube into a condenser where it turns to liquid again and drops into the extractor body and thimble. The extractor body fills with solvent until it reaches the top of the siphon tube, whereupon it drains back into the flask. This cycle repeats until extraction is complete and there is no more coloring of the solvent in the extractor body. The extract or tincture is recovered from the flask and the extracted residue is recovered from the thimble. Very often, several thimbles are filled and extracted with the same solvent to obtain a concentrated tincture. Yes, a lot of this stuff, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. The next process will be called fermentation. Fermentation is a very important process in alchemy, through which the vital essence of a material is released into a new medium from which we can capture it. In herbal alchemy, it is always preferable to use the plant's own mercury instead of that derived from another source, such as grain alcohol. Although the mercury of a kingdom is the same throughout that kingdom, isolating it in this very purified form is difficult. Each type of alcohol carries with it some of the subtle sulfur, or the sulfur of the plant from which it was distilled. In many of the beginning works of herbal alchemy for general use, an alcohol derived from wine is perfectly suitable. However, for some of the more advanced works, it will be necessary to obtain the alcohol from the particular plant one is working with. Winemaking is an art unto itself and more than we can detail here. You can explore this in many places online, so we will only touch on a few guidelines for alchemical work. The idea is to add nothing foreign to the plant, that is, no added yeast or sugar, or nutrients other than what the plant itself supplies. The general procedure is to place the fresh or dried plant into a large container that can be sealed. If you are using plant materials that have been steamed to collect the sulfur, the natural yeast of the plant are going to be inactive, so you will have to add a handful of the plant that did not get steamed. Cover the plant matter with enough water to make it very liquid, say 5 to 10 times the volume of solids, and stir it around very well. Now stopper the vessel tightly, but leave a small piece of tubing running out of the top and into a small container of water. This is called fermentation lock. Fermentation is anaerobic, that is, it proceeds without air contact. However, there is a release of carbon dioxide gas which can bubble out of the tube without air getting in. Fermentation can take days or weeks to complete, so place the vessel into a warm place at about 30 degrees Celsius and watch for the bubbling to stop. When the bubbling and foaming action has stopped, filter the liquid out and seal it for use. You can proceed immediately to distillation in order to obtain the mercury, or let the wine age for a while first. Remember to save the plant residue for calcination and recovery of the salt, and also save the liquid from which you have distilled the mercury. This liquid is evaporated to a thick honey-like consistency, then calcined to obtain the salt of sulfur of the plant. More on this when we talk about calcination. In practice, you may find it necessary to deviate from the ideal and add a small amount of wine yeast and sugar to those plants that seem to refuse to ferment easily. And here's a little diagram of what he was talking about. How you have the little tube coming out and going into an open jar of water to allow it to escape during the process. If you find it necessary to add yeast to initiate fermentation, try adding a handful of red grapes, which still have the white, powdery coating of natural yeast on the skin, into a cupful of warm water. Shake it around for a while, then decant the water. It contains some of the grape yeast into the plant water mixture you wish to ferment. This will act as a starter to initiate fermentation. Sublimation is a term used to denote the rarefication of a material. Sorry. Come on, baby girl. Hey, Hank, it's okay. It's okay, guys. Thank you. Thank you. They're okay. They're okay. Good boys and girls. Okay. Sorry about that. Sublimation is the next process. Sublimation is a term used to denote the rarefication of a material, and though it is often applied to liquid or solid materials in alchemy, it most commonly refers to action on a solid body. There are some solids you will come upon in alchemy which are purified by sublimation. These materials go from the solid state to a vapor without passing through a liquid state, and the vapor returns to the solid state upon contact with the cold surface. It's pretty neat. Alchemically, the body opens and the finer parts ascend. These are captured by a cool condensing surface in an exalted form. Most notable are many of the ammonia-based salts. Corningware casseroles work well for this. Place the matter to be sublimated in a layer on the bottom of one casserole, then cover with a second casserole that is inverted. Gently heat the bottom and the sublimate will collect on the upper surfaces. The final sublimation temperature will depend on the matter you are sublimating and can range from near room temperature to a full red heat. Sublimation is the reason your ice cubes disappear if left for long periods in the freezer and form the basis for freeze-drying materials. So that's going from solid to gas without the liquid form. The next process will be circulation. Circulation is a process of continuous distillation used in alchemy to evolve your subject matter. In its simplest form, your subject, say one of the 7 basics, is placed into a tall bottle like a long wine bottle and gently heated at the bottom, while the top is allowed to remain cool. In this way, the liquid distills upward, hits the cool upper surface, and condenses, then falls into the bulk of the liquid. It is not unusual to let a substance circulate for a month or longer, during which time it passes through many life cycles and death, rebirth cycles, and is evolved. This is another easy method of enhancing the effectiveness of your elixirs and of stepping from the realm of simple spagyric preparation to truly alchemical preparations. Circulation provokes the evolution of matter towards a more perfect state. Tall wine bottles filled only 3 or 4 ounces and set on a warm heating pad will work for this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that with the ones I have just sitting there. The next and last one it looks like we'll be going over will be calcination. It's really easy. Calcination takes its name from the word calx, which is an old term meaning lime or quicklime, calcium oxide, which is a white powder. When something is calcined, we apply fire to produce a white ash, usually, by burning away the various volatile constituents and revealing the essential mineral components, the salt, or body. Burning herbs to ash is easy enough over a small propane stove, but there are few problems. First, there is the smoke and smell, sure to attract the attention of your neighbors and elicit moans and groans from other people of your household. Unless you have a good fume hood, this is definitely an outdoor activity. Secondly, there are some materials which refuse to get very white at all. There is a simple method we can use called the leaching process to obtain the salts in a purified form. After extracting your herb with alcohol, the plant residue is filtered out and placed into a heat-resistant dish. Metal dishes are okay, but avoid aluminum. Take it outside and place it on a brick or some other fire-resistant holder. Then touch a match to it. Let the herb burn and stir it around once in a while to burn as much as possible. It should turn black, and if you are lucky, it will calcine by itself to gray. Prolonged calcining will eventually give you a very light gray to almost white ash. To speed this up, we can take our gray ash and mix it with 10 to 20 times its volume of water. Shake it or stir it well. You can even heat it up to near boiling. Then filter out and collect the liquid. Place the liquid in a bowl and allow it to evaporate under a gentle heat. A white crystalline matter will remain. Collect this. Grind it fine and keep it dry. This is called the salt of salt. The material that remains in the filter, which did not dissolve in the water, is called caput mortum, or dead head, also called terra damnata, or damned earth, and is usually just discarded. There is another salt we obtain from plants. In working, you will notice that many plants do not give a lot of volatile oil, the alchemical sulfur. They are said to have a fixed sulfur. For these we can take the fermentation liquor, after removal of the alcohol or mercury, or an alcohol extract of the plant. Evaporate it to a thick honey-like mass, then calcine it. It will turn black, and continued calcination may get it to a gray, but generally not. It stays black, so we use a little trick to help. Grind the black material, then wet it with distilled water, or better yet, the collected phlegm of the plant, just to saturation. Let it stand overnight, then gently calcine it again. You will notice that it becomes lighter. Repeat this process of wetting and calcining several times, and you will slowly bring it to a very light gray, or even to white. This can now be leached out with water as you did for the plant ash. Filter and crystallize it. This will give us the salt of sulfur, which is a magnet for the subtle principles of sulfur of the particular plant. In almost all cases, you will find that a long, slow calcination works better than a short, violent one. Solve et coagula. This is an ancient alchemical formula for exalting our matter. In herbal work, it is applied to the salts we collect, and from the standpoint of chemistry, it is a simple recrystallization where our salts are dissolved into water, filtered, and again evaporated to dryness. From the alchemical viewpoint, we are passing our matter through the life, death, and rebirth cycle. So that's how you do it with your salt. In the liquid state, materials are much more susceptible to astrological influences, especially through the moon. And we use this to impress or augment a planetary power in our subject. It is not uncommon to repeat this process of solve et coagula a number of times using distilled water or specially prepared type of water which has already captured certain astrological influences during its manufacture. With each cycle, the subject becomes more powerful. An excellent source of this water is the so-called phlegm from distilling and rectifying the alcohol. This phlegm is obtained by continuing the distillation of our fermentation liquid down to the thickened honey-like residue from which we obtain the salt of sulfur. The water that distills over is called the phlegm and is held to be the best solvent for purifying the salts of the body it was derived from. So keep it aside until needed. As fire is the active agent for purification of spiritual energies, or niter, water is the active agent for purification of material energies, such as the salt. These are just a few of the common operations of laboratory alchemy, and these in turn are related to the planets or signs of the zodiac under whose influence they are preferentially performed. So remember, the signs of the zodiac, they pass over our heads every night. Each one of them does. So I don't know, maybe the process of how long it takes to actually make them pure is what takes it as long to go around and see that again, that same point at night, like a whole year. Or if you do it again the very next day at the same time, just a few seconds later or earlier, like 4-point-something seconds. So you're not always going to do it at the same time. Wow. You don't want to do it at the same time every day. You want to do it about 4 seconds later or earlier. slower. So 4 seconds earlier every day compared to the sun, wherever the sun is. Wow, so you really need to keep track of star charts and stuff like that to get the most out of this stuff. This is a lifetime of learning right here. Remember that there is also the inner alchemy, which affects the operator as well. Each of these operations can become a very powerful transformative meditation during their performance if we consciously relate ourselves with our subject matter. For example, during the calcinations of our plant material, we burn off the volatile structure components of the plant, which serve to protect it from the environment and ensure its propagation during its life. Now these components are no longer necessary as it enters a new phase of its life as an evolved alchemical elixir in the service of the alchemist. Similarly, with our psyche, we have accumulated various ephemeral components in the mass of our personality, some good, some bad, which have served their purpose and are no longer required. There are many things we have tucked away deep in our unconscious that we prefer to forget about altogether, and it takes a good deal of our energy to keep them hidden. And this is energy blocked up in a useless waste that is better used elsewhere. I love that. Excuse me. We've all been in the hot seat during our lives when these things we try to hide and hope they will go away do come out. Or we have more catastrophic events which rip our lives apart, and we are forced to look deeply within to determine what is really most essential in our lives. This is part of our personal calcination, getting rid of those things that we don't need. For me, it was the Red Bull. I burned away the need, the want for those things. I have many more to do, but that's my latest one that I've been working on. We can consciously pull these things out, examine them for what they are, learn from them, diffuse the grip they have on us due to erroneous beliefs, and move on. I'm going to read that one more time because that's so beautifully well put. We can consciously pull these things out, examine them for what they are, learn from them, and then diffuse the grip they have on us due to erroneous beliefs and move on. Like that we are what's the word? Addicted to. Our bodies are dependent upon. We have to forget these terms. These are terms that were told to us. We are in charge. You know, you have to, it's so much spiritual and mind and body together. In this way, we purposely calcine out those parts of the psyche which we tie up energy. We free this energy for our own personal transformation into our true selves. So it is with each of the alchemical operations, there is a corresponding internal process that leads to our own transformation into an evolved being. Very often it is not easy, nor a comfortable thing, or a pretty sight. That is why it is called the great work. But in the end, the things that have kept us as heavy as lead becomes transmuted into incorruptible spiritual gold. The process of laboratory alchemy have a strange way of working on us at all levels in spite of ourselves. As we work on our matter, it is working on us. Ooh, I got chills there. So as you're working on your plants and taking care of them and nurturing them, they're doing the same to you, whether you know it or not, at that same time. The zodiac and alchemical operations. The various stages our matter must pass through on its way to becoming perfected by art will be dependent on the particular subject of the work. Alchemy recognizes 12 of the most common chemical operations, one for each sign of the zodiac. When the moon is in a particular constellation, a corresponding chemical operation is performed. Okay, so the moon is your marker. When the moon hits the zodiac, that's when you perform your certain operation. In other words, the subtle energies governing the operation or state of the matter to be operated on are considered to be optimal, or at least active. The operations and the zodiac signs are classically listed as follows. And I am going to show these to you guys instead of reading them all out real quick. If you want later, you can pause it. Let me turn this around. We'll just zoom it in up here. You have your planet, your sign, your element, your duration, and your operation. And that's it. So I'm going to have to start looking into these charts a little bit more, do a little bit more research. I'm not going to just use this one book's chart. I'd like to, get more than one person's opinion on what goes where and all that kind of good stuff. What are we at, an hour already? This one's about 9 pages, 10 pages. Do you guys want to do one more chapter? Or do you want to just call it quits there for this week and take a look around the garden, have a chat? I don't mind doing one more. But I've been reading for an hour and I don't want to make it too long for anybody. This next chapter is on the magistries. This is about the ends tinctures, preparing the ends. Actually, we'll save this for next week. We went over a lot today. We're going to let that one sink in, I think. This will be just a chapter 5. But next week is really neat. There are some... Well, I'll read one part of it just to give you guys a little taste of it. And we're going to talk about how you turn vegetables into a stone. It's amazing. But this part I'm going to read you here, it's called the Primum Ens Melissa. And it has to do with the lemon balm plants that I purchased. That's the Melissa plant. All right, Chris, take care, man. Thanks for stopping by. It was fun. Great chat this morning. And I'll see you around, maybe in chat later on, Flowbusters or whatnot. Tell your dad I said hi. Okay, I'm going to read this quick part. It's just a couple chapters here on the lemon balm plant, or Primum Ens Melissa. Perhaps the most well-known Ens extract is the Primum Ens Melissa. Paracelsus mentions the herb Melissa with high praise and says it is loaded with an easily obtained quintessence of rejuvenating virtue. Franz Hartmann mentions an often quoted case of its use by Lesabure, a physician of Louis XIV of France, who gives in his Guide to Chemistry, written about 1685, an account of some experiments witnessed by with his own eyes. One of my most intimate friends prepared the Ens Melissa, and his curiosity would not allow him to rest until he had seen with his own eyes the effect of this arcanum, so that he might be certain whether or not the components given of its virtues were true. He therefore made the experiment, first upon himself, then upon an old female servant, aged 70 years, and afterwards upon an old hen that was kept at his house. First he took, every morning at sunrise, a glass of white wine that was tinctured with this remedy, and after using it for 14 days, his finger and toenails began to fall out, without, however, causing any pain. He was not courageous. At this, she was much surprised, because she did not know that she had been taking a medicine. She became frightened and refused to continue the experiment. My friend took, therefore, some grain, soaked it in the wine, and gave it to the old hen to eat. And on the 6th day, that bird began to lose its feathers, and kept on losing them until it was perfectly nude. But before 2 weeks had passed, new feathers grew, which were more beautifully colored. Her comb stood up again, and she again began to lay eggs. Now, if that's true, I'm going to find out. I want to know. Because that would blow my mind if... Yeah. I'm going to try it. If my toenails and stuff first start swelling. I'm going to keep going, though. I'm not going to be a little sissy like that guy. Quit. So, how's everybody doing? Any questions on anything covered there? I have my first zucchini I see popping here. Little guy right in there, see him? And I told you that these leaves are going to get huge. Look at that, there's my hand. My hand is 8 inches long. It's wild, isn't it? Spearmint patch is doing real well. Yeah, just pop right off of there. So I'm going to reconnect again here one more time. Hey, Steven. And we're back, reconnected. 2 tips of the mint? Okay, I can do that. Give me 1 second, guys. My buddy is... Remember, you always pull from on top of... You don't want to pull on these 2 little guys. You always pull just a little part. The tips are really the most... where a lot of the fragrance is coming out, too. What are you using them for?
Cooking.
Cooking? Sweet. Wild strawberries are doing great. They're really spreading out here. I see a weed in here. I'm gonna get rid of. Yeah, they're doing real well. This is the best year they've probably had. They're looking real good. Pepper plants are all doing really, really good. Still no big peppers on these ends down here. These end 2. I took the one off of this guy. He was still, you can see his stalk down there. Yeah, the strawberries are really spreading out like wild. Even we got 1 pepper down here on this guy. I have already taken 1 off of here and 1 off of this, the last one I showed you. This guy, no, it's actually sand. I live on a big sand dune. This used to be a, most of the land around here was underwater, and this was like a mound, a sand mound, like a beachfront. Yeah, sand. I put a lot of manure down though, and compost right around all the plants to keep them. But it's really good because we do get a lot of rain and stuff, and I never get flooded in. Here's my tomato plant. I added another cage. The 1 cage was only up to here, and I added another one. It's already about halfway up that cage. He's doing great. Look at the size of that stalk on that guy. He's going to be holding some monster tomatoes. So, really happy with him. Here's the other strawberries that are all branching out. That'll be a new strawberry. That guy's already planted in there. There's a new one planted in. This guy's a new one planted in. New one there. There's a new start. I'm going to move that over a little bit. You want to kind of keep them. See how I have them coming out at different angles? You don't want them to get real close to each other and plant into the ground. Some of them are too close. I'm going to have to do some transplanting this winter and keep them somewhat separated. Oh, what is that? That is a weed. Yeah, weeds like to hide right by the base of your plants. So yeah, And I'm getting strawberries again. Even though they are putting out a lot of shoots, I'm getting bigger strawberries than I was earlier. Here's one that's coming. Let's see if I can get that focused in there. And then here's a couple more down here that are looking pretty good. I know there was another a nice size one over here somewhere. Oh yeah, right down in here. So they're not doing bad this year. I've had plenty worse years, and here are my new friends. These are some of my favorite plants in the world right here. This is a golden seal plant. What I'll do is I'll take the roots and dry them out and grind them up and make some of the best medicines you can get. There's a little baby. There's another guy back here. Just popped through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm hoping I get at least one more out of it. I planted 6 of them, but it's a hard plant to get going. See, there's one right here that the top died right there. But it's still showing some signs of life, so I'm just gonna let it go. Maybe it'll do something next year. If not, I always know where the roots are, and that's what I want. That's what I'm gonna be getting. I'll get out the root and and there's some more in here, but I'm not gonna go digging. They like to be covered. They like growing in shade. That's why I put them over here. I got this stack of buckets here to block when the sun's over in that way. I have this chair up to block in the morning, so they only want about 25% sun. But they're doing real well. I'm so happy. I got real excited seeing them. Yeah, look at all the berries. They got so heavy that they're all on the ground. These poor plants. I let them get too tall. That's why they say to keep them about 3-4 foot max. And I let them get too tall this year. I was just experimenting, trying stuff out, you know. That's how we learn. These zucchinis don't have any, lots of flowers, but no zucchini yet. They'll start popping here pretty soon. We need the bugs around. And I'm seeing lots of bees, but not as much as normal. We'll go check out the green beans over here. Let me throw my shoes on. Yeah, it's sand everywhere. It's hard to get anything to grow. Yeah, I had the mishap yesterday. 30 years old. It happens. I'm gonna take it apart and all that good stuff. Green beans are just going gangbusters. Look at these things. And they're all looking so healthy. Nice, thick, rich green. All the fibers are shining real good. Hey, come on, buddy. Don't pee on the Virginia creeper. He didn't do nothing to you. And this Virginia creeper plant, I'm still amazed it's not trying to grow this way, towards that way. I'm going to keep watering him. I asked him not to grow that way. He's been listening, so I'm going to keep giving him plenty of water and just keep being friendly with him. But yeah, it's going to be green beans galore this year. They're going to grow up. They're going to start wrapping around all this stuff. Oop, I got something in here that almost looked like a potato plant for a second. There's a big one. Try to get all the roots out when you pull them. Okay, I forget what these are called, but it's just a beautiful looking flower. And the ants, I don't know what they're doing. They love them though. They're all over this thing. It ain't gonna do it while it's moving like that. I mean, they're all over all of them. Wow, I got raspberries that is a raspberry. What is it? Wow, this raspberry vine is all the way up here. This is up over my head. There's even more of them. Wow. That's wild. Yeah, they're so good right now. I might do a preserve, make the video here sometime this week. Oh wow, yeah. I gotta quit picking them or I'm gonna eat them all. No, you just stay here, buddy. You can come out with me later, okay? Here's some, this is the lamb's ear. Edible and very high in nutrition. No, I wouldn't eat this stuff. It's got, like the birds had a field day right above here. More berries though. Oh yeah, look at all those. I love it. It was a great year for berries around here. I don't know what happened. I've never seen a year like this before though for berries. The cherries are all gone. The cherry tree's done for this year. But yeah, the berries are just everywhere. Did I hit something? Yeah, look at all those. So I'll probably get to picking later on today, because you got to pick them while they're here, or else the bugs will start getting to them. Kind of like a race to see who can get to them faster. This is all new growth right here. See, these didn't produce any berries or anything this year. They'll produce next year. And I probably should clip them back at the end of this year. I'll clip them down a little bit so they're not. Oh gosh, wow, look at this growth. This is way out here. Man. Yeah, they're an amazing plant, folks. Look at all these plums on the ground. Still got quite a few up in the trees though. Haven't quite turned yet. There's one up here that was almost purple I saw. Now I can't find it. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it fell. I don't know. And then we'll go check out the cucumbers and the pickles. Try to let as much of the yard go natural without it getting too overgrown. Oh, I've been having mulberries as well. I've been eating a lot of these mulberry tree. You get the nice dark ones. A lot of people pull. I just eat the stem and all usually. I'll put them in a shake or something, a smoothie. I just eat it all. I'm getting so good. Lots of salsify. That's what all these are. They look like big giant dandelions when they open up. I have these all over now. As soon as I started letting them grow, they spread a lot. If you have a place like this that's kind of, well, you don't have to mow and stuff, get some salsify growing in there. It's good eating, especially in wintertime. Things get real bad or something, grocery stores close, you'd always have a food source. They're almost about to open up, everybody. These things are so cool. They're gonna have this yellow flower. You can see it almost starting right there. Yeah, these things are real soft. It feels like satin. And ooh, they're all looking rough right now because they're in the sun. Don't worry, they're okay. This is what happens. They look fine. They're getting big, aren't they? They look so sad right now though because they're all weeping like that. But no, they're perfectly fine. They're doing wonderful here. As soon as that sun goes down, they'll all pop back up. I'm going to give them a good watering today. I had broken up the soil real good, but a lot of the we had a lot of rain this week, like I said. So it hold on, let me come over here and take my shoes off before I jump in. Yeah, you can see the manure and the compost that I had put in here. But yeah, they're doing great. And when they stand up, they cover, it's covering a lot more area. And I might have been a week or two off. So maybe July 14th, you won't be able to see much of this ground around here. I was going on the 1 year where I had a great year. Ooh, look at the little pickles on here. See the little guys? Oh. Come on, focus. There's each one of these little yellow flowers is going to be a pickle. Just hundreds of them. And I'll do the pickling one live because that one's easy. Making pickles is really easy. The preserves takes like 4 hours though. It'd be a really long, boring hangout of me standing there stirring something. But pickles I can do in no time, real quick. You just have to boil I'll show you. It's real easy. We'll do that one outside over an open fire as well. That'll be a good one. But that one will be coming here in a couple weeks, I'm thinking. It's looking like. Cucumbers are all looking real well. Remember how I said the garlic was gonna fall off first and kind of look like it was dying? Well, there you go, right here. Oh, let me get rid of this stuff, these weeds. But yeah, right in there. See how all these are falling down and laying down now? That's the garlic. It's not dead or anything. It's just done with its season, kinda. It's gathering sunlight and all that kind of stuff. Now it's gonna start going dormant. And I'll show you how we dig it up when I go to make pickles, because I always use raw garlic in my pickles. It's good stuff. Well, I need to weed over here bad. We'll get to that later. And then the lemon balm. This will be the last one for the day right here. But the lemon balm is looking amazing, folks. Look at how much it's grown. It's jumping up. All this stuff is like new growth. It is loving living here. I'm so happy. Got so excited that it really took. And it's, yeah. Ooh. You okay there, bud? Let me get that off you. It still smells like lemon, even though it's all dried out and decrepit. It still smells just amazing. But yeah, cannabinoids, folks. Lots and lots of cannabinoids in lemon balm. And I don't think that it's illegal anywhere. Now the golden seal I'm growing, stuff like that, I'd check that first if you want to try planting something like that. But I don't think lemon balm is illegal anywhere. And it is full of cannabinoids. Full of them. So I'm gonna, well, I'm not even gonna get it all out. I put it and wrapped it all back up in its case and everything until I get my alcohol burner. But I got my distillation set up, my Alchemy distillation and cold water condenser. It is so cool. I just put out a video, I think yesterday. I was trying to get it, playing around with it last night out in the garage. But I needed a stronger flame. The fire I was using was of a candle, and I need just a hotter type of fire. So I got an alcohol wickless burner, and it should be here by the end of the week. So next weekend, we will get an example of, the apparatus in action. I can't wait to show you all. I can't wait to see it work myself, actually. But I have it all set up. I have the cold water distribution thing all planned and set up. It works. Like I said, all the parts were already there. I already had them. I wanted to show you this, and then I'm going to get going. This is when you know polk is bad. Let me get that in focus right there. That little tip. When that little tip come on there, this one right there, that's a little bit wider, the polk is starting to go bad, and you can no longer consume it. That's the very first sign. So always make sure you look for that. If you're going to consume polk, yeah, they're all starting to get it now. But that means that that white milk is in that vein, and it's now poisonous. So that's it. Thank you all so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. It's it feels to share with people. Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. I got something in my throat. Oh. So I am gonna get oh, I need a drink of water or something. I'm gonna get going. Oh man. It's like I got a frog in my throat. I'm gonna mow, and I'm definitely picking berries. Starting to come back a little bit. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna start picking some of these berries though, because they are ready. Look at that. Watch it pop right off. Boop. Like nothing. That's when you know it's good. When all the berries come off, then you knew it was ready. If it's not ready, it can be dark still, but a couple of the berries will stay attached to that little white part. And it won't be nearly as sweet as one that just falls right off. But yeah, that's good eating, folks. All right, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it so much. Same time next week, most likely. Oh, you get them, beef. You tell them. You tell me. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What happened? What are you doing? Okay, I thought he was hiding something or something there. Got a little excited. So that's it, folks. Not a bad one. Next week we'll be covering the end tinctures and stuff like that. Maybe we'll do 6 and 7. So that's it. Thanks for joining me. Good times for all here. Signing out. As always, thanks for watching.